time is it now? Oh, you got 2 minutes. Saying agreement. That's a good camera.
Y'all ready?
Yeah. We got
Good
3.
evening, and welcome to the work session board meeting for Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fuller?
Here.
Mrs. Gator? Here. Mrs. Lumen? Here. Mr. Freeman?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here. Would everyone please stand for our pledge of allegiance? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. Next, we have the approval of our agenda of board. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda. It's item 1.3.
I second it.
All right, thank you very much. It's been properly moved and seconded. Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gator?
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes, motion passes 5-0. The next item on our agenda will be a financial update given by our superintendent, Mr. Jolly, and our treasurer, Dr. Rock. Gentlemen?
Good afternoon, board. Good evening, board. Good afternoon, community. Today we want to get a community update on some financial situations that the district is going through. For the past 15 years since we've been here, the district has been good stewards over our money. We have spent within our means. We have done a good job of making sure that we've been good stewards over our bonds, over all the different things that the citizens have entrusted us with. But tonight we're going to tell a story, or not a story, but tell about a significant threat to our future. And we're going to talk about some bills that have came about by the state legislator that we're going to need some assistance with application and other things to try to ensure that we can maintain and continue to grow and thrive. I'll begin talking about tonight. We're going to give a historical context. If you can move the slide, please. A historical context of the Chagrin Highlands dispute between Warrensville Heights and Beechwood City Schools, including its origins, its key events, and the legal considerations. And then Dr. Rock is going to discuss the legislative impact of proposed legislation that's going to affect every school district in the state of Ohio. I'd like to acknowledge Mayor Booker, who's in the audience today. Mayor Booker, raise your hand. We also have former board member Mr. Burks in the audience. We have council member Matt Howard in this audience. Raise your hand, sir. And we also have council president Johnny Williams. Did I miss any other elected official? All right. So let's begin. So for those that don't know where the Chagrin Highlands is located, so if anybody remember where Warrensville Township was. So Warrensville Township, if you go where Eaton Corporation is, University Hospital, Tri-C, and where the Marriott Hospital is, all of that area is considered the Chagrin Highlands. If you go all the way down to Green Road, so you go to Green Road all the way across Green Road to where where the workhouse is, all the way down to Harvard, all of that's considered the Chagrin Highlands. All of that area is really part of Cleveland. Cleveland owns all of that area. Move to the next slide. So Cleveland owns the whole thing. Now, when we get to in the mid '80s, Beechwood knew that something was coming there. Anybody remember the Figgy situation? So Figgy was going to build this big headquarters there. So there was, and at the time, with Mayor Booker, Highland Hills did not exist. So it was Warrensville Township. So there was a series of negotiations between Warrensville, Beechwood, Orange. I think Shaker was part of the negotiation. And the Orange Beechwood Shaker. There's one more city. Oh, and Highland Hills didn't exist yet. And Cleveland was part of the conversation. So during that conversation, the city of Highland Hills was developed. And with that, the Chagrin Highlands was broke up into parcels. So on the left side became Beechwood. Across Richmond Road, on the left side became Beechwood. On the right side was Highland Hills, where Tracy is. The other side was Warrensville. Then when you go across the freeway, where the University Hospital is Orange, and then all of that is Orange. But all of it sits inside of the Warrensville Heights City School District. It always has been inside of the Warrensville Heights City School District. Never sat in anywhere else but the Warrensville Heights City School District. Next slide. So here's the story. In 1990, I was in the 10th grade, I think, 11th grade when this happened. Beechwood annexed all the 450 acres of the land from Warrensville Township. At the time, Beechwood was not aware that when they annexed it, that it wouldn't become part of their school district. So the city took it, and when the city took it, the school district didn't come with it. So they already knew the plans for Figgy. They knew all this money was going to come, but they did not have access to the property. The school district didn't have access to the property. So in October, Beechwood then tried to take the property from Warrensville. So what they did is they tried to annex it. So they went to the State Board of Education and said, we're just going to take it from Warrensville. Next slide. So for 7 years, they were going back and forth in court to decide what was going to happen to the property. In 1997, both sides agreed to go to a mediator, and they went to a retired judge to mediate the dispute. So the retired judge got everybody in a room, and they said, let's talk about it, let's try to solve it. Because they were going to court, nothing really was going on. With that, and this is what we didn't know until 2022, that unexpected consequence of removing the agreement from the Ohio State Board of Education, which always reviews territory transfers between schools, that was waived when they went to the mediation. So if they were to continue in court, the Ohio State Board of Education would have had to approve the transfer. But since it didn't go to court, the mediation, and we didn't know this at the time, or the people who was at the table didn't know this at the time, that allowed this agreement, which we didn't believe was agreement, but an agreement to occur. So hindsight, we got this big piece of land. There's nothing on it right now. It's nothing but woods. It's all woods. It's making no money. It's just all woods. People knew that it was going to be developed, and they knew it would eventually be worth money. So there was a dispute about who owned it, and then a dispute about who owned it. It ended up in mediation, and in the process of us being in mediation, an agreement was struck. Next slide. So as part of the mediation, Beechwood withdrew its territory transfer request. So they said, okay, since we saw this, we're going to withdraw this request. At the time, the parties agreed to share the tax revenues once it got to be $22 million, with Warrensville receiving 70% and Beechwood receiving 30%. So again, this is property we already own. Somehow or another, we agreed to give them 30% once it got to be 22 million. At the time, it was nothing there, so there was no money being generated. It was absolutely nothing being generated. As part of this deal, Warrensville asked for joint educational programs. So part of it, the people who sat at the table said that we need to share education. At the time, Beechwood was very diverse. Warrensville wasn't. Beechwood considered to have a better educational system at the time. So our people requested that we share education or programs. Next slide. So you see the slide goes to 2013 because for the next 16 years, absolutely nothing happened. There was no exchange educational programs. There was no money exchanged. There was nothing going on, absolutely. But at the time, Chagrin Holdings was starting to grow. So Eaton Corporation came, other businesses started to come, and revenue started to come. In 2013, Beechwood attempted to collect shared taxes, and Warrensville refused, citing that there was never an agreement. It wasn't approved by the State Board of Education, and the treasurer's certificate was required by law. And there was a failure to establish joint educational programs. So we fast forward to 2017. So, and I could give a little history. When we first came in 2015-16, Beechwood came to us with a medical program at the hospital, which we didn't have any awareness agreement because nobody from Warrensville was around that was here in 1990 or 1997. So we didn't have anybody with institutional knowledge that was on the board or was aware of this deal. So we did participate in that program. We sent 10 kids up there for a summer program. That was coupled, and it's not in the PowerPoint, with a $3 million bill for taxes. Like they said they wanted $3 million, which then prompted all of this court cases that we're going through now. So Beechwood filed in 2017, and we actually won the first case. So we won the first case. In 2018, they refiled a lawsuit against us. It was for breach of contract and additional claims. It basically said that we were defrauding them of millions of dollars. Fast forward to 2019. We won the legal arguments in trial court. And the judge actually ruled that the Ohio Board of Education was required to review and approve the deal. So at this point, we think we're in great standing and that we were going to win the case. 2020, Beechwood appealed it, and the 8th Court District Appeals reversed the decision, declaring that the contract was valid and enforceable. So now at this time, they said it's a valid contract. We still don't know exactly what all the parcels are. We don't know the mechanism of how we're going to pay. So we appealed, and then we appealed to the Ohio Supreme Court. And again, they affirmed the court's decision, recognizing that the agreement was valid without requiring the State Board of Education approval or a fiscal certificate. So we go to 2024. We tried to get a motion of partial judgment, and we were denied that case also. So we have a history of, we lost about 3 or 4 cases in a row. 2025, we went back to the appeals court, and that we were denied again, but we were told to go to mediation. And on April 17th, we entered mediation, and we came up with a proposed settlement. At this point, I want to answer any questions the board might have or anybody in the community might have about this so far. So there and I can just give some context, there's significant amount of money that the district receives from District Grand Highlands. And the dispute is in reference to a contract that had no end date on it. So just imagine if you have a contract that doesn't have an end date. So the contract will go on forever. That is one of the disputes and one of the arguments that we have in trying to settle this. Because again, this goes back 30, 35 years. And in 35 years, if we don't settle it now, people who will be sitting here 35 years from now will be still dealing with the same situation. So our goal is to get this settled because as Dr. Rock attempts to develop 5-year forecasts or develop plans for budgeting for the future, this has always been in consideration. Because if we lose or we lose a significant amount of money, it can affect our whole operation of how we operate to this day. So the board has fought this significantly since we've been aware of it to try to preserve the district's right to preserve the district's money and to ensure that we can continue to provide our students with a quality education and use our resources correctly. But this is a very significant settlement. I am not at liberty to give the numbers today because it's not signed by both parties. As soon as it's signed by both parties, then we will release the numbers. But the numbers are significant. They are significant. Go to the next slide. The exact, it's still worked out, so we do have a tentative agreement, but it's not signed. Both boards still need to sign both. As soon as we get it back, we will call another meeting to give the numbers. I know there were some numbers discussed at another meeting prior this week. And those numbers were significant, but I'm not at liberty to give the numbers tonight because, again, I don't want the numbers to get out to our competitor or our person that we're against, and then they change the deal. Again, we believe we have a deal that will end this dispute and allow the district to move forward relatively soon.
So, Mr. Jolly, just some clarity. So, in dealing with Beechwood and the amount of money that we are paying them, are they going to be offering any educational resources for our children?
I cannot say at this point, but I would say that there will not be significant exchange of educational programs. There will not be significant exchange. There won't.
Well, and again, the board needs to, after we get the final language of the settlement, then the board will have, no one's had the final language of the settlement because it hasn't been finalized. So once it's finalized, then the board can review all of the data and explanations of the settlement at that time. So that's what Mr. Jolly's saying. It's very tentative and it's there's nothing.
Yeah, we thought we would have a deal signed by today, but it did not come back yet. So as soon as it comes back, we'll have a meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Jolly. Can you just clarify the part where we were supposed to have joint programs with Beechwood? Because when you mentioned the UH, I was part of that where we had taken 5th graders and we had 25 or so. It was Mr. Gregory and myself, where we would go to programming at UH in joint with Beechwood. But what is the extent of what it was supposed to be other than just that UH program?
So in the contract, it basically says it's supposed to be like video learning, almost like Zoom learning. But remember, you used to do it in the media center when you had the TV. Yeah, like Cleveland Clinic where they had a Chinese class or something, and it was supposed to be that type of learning. And exchange of programs, or different field trips and things like that. But there was never, with the exception of those 2 medical programs, any programs done. So, on our behalf, I don't believe we offered them any programs either. So it wasn't just one way, it was both. But there was nothing really done for an extended period of time. It could be considered both people abandoned the contract. But the money, started to come, so there, with that, decisions have to be made. Any other questions, anyone? Any questions? Okay.
over here.
Yes, ma'am.
Two things. One, is there an proposed end date, or is it also continuing forever? And then two, I guess with programming, is there consideration for like AP?
So, of course, our hope that it will be an end date on it. That is our hope, and that's what we're working toward. Again, with programming, uh, I don't know if that's something that would still have to be discussed. Yeah, that's something that's have to be discussed. But again, there's not a contract like this that has ever been written. So we are dealing with some unprecedented contract. There's never been a contract written between two school districts like this one that had sharing of money and things and without an end date. So we are in very uncharted waters trying to settle something so that our community can continue to benefit. Yes, sir.
So I don't know if you're gonna cover it or not, but, and maybe you will, because I think we probably still got a little bit more to talk about, but so what's gonna be the impact, right? I mean, what would be I don't know if we're gonna get to the meat and potatoes of that, or how that's gonna impact our district.
So I would say right now, it would be a limited impact until it's final. Once it's final, then we will definitely be back to the community once the exact number is verified. Of course, we've been looking at different ways to minimize the impact. Our number one goal is to not hurt our classrooms or to limit. We want to keep as many people in the classrooms as possible. We don't want to limit any of our classrooms. So, staying out of the classroom as much as possible. We would definitely, if we need to make some reductions, that's what we'll be looking. But it is, and I just want to prepare it, it's a significant number that we will be discussing later this month.
And our board has been very strategic financially as a team, as a board governance, and Mr. Jolly and myself. So we're going to continue doing that. We're not stopping doing that. So it'll be strategic. It'll be planned out. And once we have the final amounts, we'll certainly provide those.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. I think the question is, when the settlement is made, would it be something that lump sum or paid all the time? Continue to say it's a significant amount.
Yeah, that's.
Immediate impact, or would it be an impact to us over time?
We won't know that until the final settlement's done, when it's finally drafted and everything. But again, please be rest assured that we are doing, and the board, the leadership, me and Mr. Jolly are doing what's best for the district. So yes, from our side standpoint, we want that to end as fast as possible. But again, remember, it's a mediation, just like we mediate with our unions. It's a two-way street. So you have two sides and you still have to mediate and you have to come to an agreement. So, but we are 150% fighting. We're continuing to fight as much as we can for the district and do what's best for the district. So the results will be that'll be the results of our work, of our hard work to make sure we protect for the school community and continue our good news for the community.
It's our goal not to kick the ball. We want to stop kicking it down the road and end it as soon as we can, because it's been going for 35 years. And it's just time for it to end. So hopefully it can end. And the next group of people who are board members and the superintendent here will not have to deal with it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I think I know the answer, but it's worth asking anyway. would there be any mitigation from either the state or federal or Department of Education? Nothing, zero, nada, or any hope there?
No, to be honest, we got very discouraged with the losses in court. I mean, we really felt we had a good case. We felt that we had a good case, but we weren't successful in our cases. I mean, we've been fighting this since 2017, repeatedly. I think we have some of the best lawyers in the business representing us. So with that, no, we haven't received any relief or help from anyone. It's been us fighting, trying to just ensure that we are able to keep what's ours.
And there's one piece of data that we learned early on, and we probably should have shared tonight. This is a territory transfer, okay? Traditionally with school districts, if there's going to be a territory transfer, there's usually one of the first question is, are there students involved? In other words, are there students from city A going to city B school district? You know, if they're already going there, that's what the Ohio Department of Education looks at. They analyze that to say, hey, this might be better to redraw the boundary lines because you already have 100 students going to that school district, you know, because all the funding and everything flows that way. But with this one, that's why Mr. Jolly said there's never been a contract like this that ever existed before. There's not one student that lives there. It's all business property. And that's the next question is, and this is what they call, it's called a naked tax grab. In other words, another city sees that the property's valuable and we want to go grab the tax dollars from that because it's close to us, you know, and usually that doesn't pass. And the Ohio Department of Education, those are the rules that they look at. But again, you looked at the history, we were pulled away from that by that mediator. So then we didn't have a chance, it didn't go through. And at one point in the court cases, one judge says that we were correct in saying that this should have gone through the Ohio Department of Education, but then they appealed, we lost, they appealed again, we lost again, and then we lost the third time. So it's there. That's like the other piece of data. Does that help explain some of your question?
Given the differences in the demographic from Beechwood to Warrensville, do you guys feel, even in the loss, satisfied?
Mm-hmm.
We'll know more when the final drafts comes out because we're literally there's no finalization yet.
Councilman Williams, in the things that Mr. Jolly said, you know, talking about the significant numbers, you know, and the like, the substantial amounts, were things that we had to weigh. When we heard some of the numbers that are in the proposed settlement, to me, it felt like a kick in the stomach, and I will be completely honest with you. My stomach physically hurt when I realized the money that was going to be taken from our district. Mm-hmm. But when we also were given the potential impact long term and what those numbers could have been, that felt like a bullet to my head. All right. So the numbers that are in the proposed settlement are significant, but when compared with what the district would have been up against in the future, it was the right thing to, you know, mitigate that with what is being proposed right now. So there's no way we could feel good about it, but in comparison to what it could have been, yes, it was, you know, it's the right thing.
Yeah, I can say this, just imagine you have a contract with no end date and no parameters of what's owed. So you gotta come up with something to try to get it over. So that's where we are. It's an unfortunate situation. And it's 35 years old. And we want to end it. So we hope and we pray that this is, we can come to a conclusion this month. And then we will call everybody back to disclose exactly what's in it, and chart a path forward. It's very uncomfortable to see here. I mean, as being a product of the city community growing up here, and not being aware of, the things that happened prior. I was in high school. we didn't know anything about property deals and property and all the things that's going on. So it's just important that we educate our community and educate our kids in the future, because these things gonna come back up, and we gotta be ready and at the table and able to see the future, so that we're prepared and our students are prepared to protect our property and what's ours. Because these attacks will come again. I mean, we got valuable property in Warrensville City School District in this community. And other communities, they do land grabs all the time, everywhere. So we just gotta make sure our people are prepared for anybody else that try to come for us. More questions? All right, we moved on to the next one. I think that people, if you've been paying attention to the news, and the Republican legislator has 2 or 3 bills is on the line that's very significant, that have a significant impact on school districts. Dr. Rob, go into detail about that.
Thank you. So I've been in this business for 22 years, and so every 2 years you see a state budget, and every 2 years it's a different budget, okay? Up until 5 years ago, when we came up with the new funding formula, it's called the Fair School Funding Plan. They finally came up with a plan that you paid you for your students. Now, granted, back in the past, I would have to present, even these are our numbers. When I first started here, we were getting $11 million from the state of Ohio. And you say, wow, that's a big chunk of money. Okay, the state would say, here's your $11 million, but we're going to charge you back $6 million, so now you end up with $5 million. And that's how convoluted and how distracting and unfair, and it was just horrible formulas that they had. But every 2 years that would change, and through my experience, you look at it and if you read between the tea leaves, the state says we have X amount for that we're going to put to public education, and now we're going to reverse engineer it and figure out a plan that says, okay, this is how each district's going to get this amount. I mean, that's what's happening. This was the first time that they actually came with a formula, and the state invested billions of dollars. So now, and along with that, you always have a roller coaster ride with this state budget thing, up and down. This one person says this, one person says that, and then at the end, you usually land somewhere totally different. So in the past, I've followed this, and early in my career, I would try to simulate every little move they made. I was boring the board with a lot of information that they were never going to land on. Not this board, but earlier in my career. So through my career, I came to a point where I'm going to keep tabs on it, and if it becomes major, then I'm going to talk about it. Unfortunately, tonight, this is something major. It's really been getting some traction down at the state. So they have a new budget, and it's called House Bill 66. And there's two ways that's going to impact us, okay? And the first way is that they're going to decrease the phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan. So is it better if I stand because I've had there we go. Now I don't have to look over the wall. So they're going to decrease the phase-in of the Fair School Funding Plan. And right now we were in the last 2 years of a 6-year phase-in, okay? So we have that. Then it's a double whammy. Then they want to limit school districts with their carryover balance to 30%. So we have 2-pronged things that are 2 double whammies going against the school districts. Next slide, please. So the Fair School Funding Plan, just like I said, it's a 6-year phase-in plan. The state funding of public education. The state, when they established this, they put billions of dollars aside, and school districts were being properly funded by the students that attended your district. And also the formula accounts for the cost of education. They're actually looking at, how much does it cost to educate the student? And then that's what they're going to point to the school districts. The only risk was when they came up with the 6-year plan, every 2 years, your governor could veto it, or it could be, renegotiated. Now, luckily for 4 years, they had the plan. We're in the final phase with years 5 and 6. Now they're going backwards and saying, oh, we can't afford it. Next slide. So the decrease in funding, so it's 67% funded so far. And for us, this next 2 years to get that final phase, we were going to get between $2 and $2.5 million in 2 different years. Okay. Now this proposal is reducing that to 1.1 million and then just shy of $1 million. So you can see that instead of getting $2 million, we're getting 1.1. Instead of getting 2.5, we're getting $1 million. So that's substantially less. Next slide. Now on top of that, and we're pushing for them to fund that. So there's some senators and representatives that are saying, hey, we got to stick with the phase in, but other ones are saying that the state just can't afford it. On top of that, they want to limit school districts to a 30% carryover balance and instruct the county auditor to reduce real estate taxes if a district has more than 30%. So in other words, if we had more than 30%, the county auditors will say, well, we're going to charge the taxpayers less. So if you charge the taxpayers less, we're going to collect less. So that all flows into our district as less revenue. And then it'll force the districts to spend down the excess carryover balances. Next slide. So what is a carryover balance? It's the remaining funds at the end of the school year after we collect all of our revenue and we spend all our bills, what's left over at the end of the year, okay? And that's a key variable to prevent the need for new levies or taxes or increase your taxes, and also prevent cuts, because there's only 2 ways, if your revenue goes down and you got to work with less money, you either work with less money or you try to increase your money or you try to do both. So the carryover balance prevents the increase in real estate taxes, and that's why you haven't seen an increase in operating, like an operating tax levy. You haven't seen one for 16 years here. Next slide. So, well, why do we have a carryover balance? Okay, just like I said, our board governance is very strategic. We work very hard to be strategic with your resources. And we always want to maximize the resources. We want to get as much as we can for our community, but also we want to minimize the impact to taxpayers. And I've done that. We've been talking about that for the past 3 or 4 board meetings, and I've been going out to the cities and presenting information on that. So, and then also with our strategic plan, we've been able to rebuild the whole campus for the whole community and invest in our scholars and the opportunities for all scholars. Next slide. So how did we get our carryover balance? Well, 16 years we spent within current resources. So, if we spent $38 million, but $40 million came in, now we had $2 million extra that got added to the pot, okay? And Mr. Jolly and I were very, very conservative when it came to the construction because we were worried that we weren't going to have enough money for the construction. And imagine that we had to live through the COVID. We had to live through that supply need. There was a part where, we couldn't get steel and we had to, it was just craziness. So we had to have a safety net. So that was part of also having the carryover balance. And on top of all of that, we wanted to invest in the educational program. And also we were very strategic with our ESSER funds. We had $14 million come in, after COVID with the ESSER funds, and that paid for our early childhood center and some additional things at the high school, middle school that we needed because of the increase of costs. So it's and now what we want to do now, this is like the whole history. Now we want the remaining funds to do the non-educational projects for the district that we need to complete the district. So that's our plan. Next slide. So, and then here's our future utilization. Again, we want to do the projects like I just said. We want to establish a long-term capital spending plan to maintain our buildings. We want to establish a maintenance plan. We want to establish a future severance plan, and then continue to minimize the cost to taxpayers. The reason that we have all those future utilizations, because if the state is going to be attacking our carryover balance, we can make these moves now and protect our carryover balance and utilize it to the maximum extent. And then the next slide. So we've been taxpayer stewards all along the way. We minimized the cost of the new bond in 2018. Now, back in 2018, our bond levy was 12.3 mils, okay? And remember when we met, Mr. Burks remembers this, I said, well, it's going to be 12.3, but it's only going to feel like an 8 mil increase, because we found that we were strategic with how we financed that. Now, the old bond's been paid off. The new bonds are only charging 3.75 mils. That's a big difference. So that means it's lower taxes. We work close with the county fiscal officer on tax rates, and I've presented at two of our three jurisdictions where we had one example where your house went from $60,000 to $90,000, but your taxes on the school levies actually went down $22. That's our strategy and being stewards of your tax dollars. So we accumulate and maintain an effective carryover balance to eliminate the need for new tax levies and extend the tax levy cycle. So meaning like, some of the other districts out there, they have a new levy, runs out of money, in 3 or 4 years, they got to get another new levy. I mean, you look at our neighbors with new levies always on the ballot. We don't have that. And the last one I wanted to say is, the state wants to change, they want to change the way that your taxes are on your real estate property. Mm-hmm. They already have things in place now that control if your property values go up, the values on the majority of our levies are held to a benchmark of either the original dollar amount or the original tax value. They don't, just because your values go up doesn't mean that we collect more money. There's maximums. So that's why between that and our savings on the bonds and our active ways, when your house went from $60,000 to $90,000 on the school levies, your taxes only went up, or they actually went down $22. So they already have that, but now if this law goes through, they're really tinkering with, a system that already works. Next slide. I think that's it, yeah.
So Dr. Rock, if that 30% carryover happens, what happens to in 4 or 5 years if the revenue is not going up? What will we have to do as a school district?
Exactly. They would force us to spend down our carryover balance. So then you wouldn't be charged real estate taxes. But eventually, and then here's just a feel for it. I'm going to tell you right now, our carryover balance is $59 million. Okay. We spend $38 million in a school year. So you can see that, we're over 100%. But there's a reason for it. You saw the story. And we're not done with what we're doing. So if we were held to what the state is doing, they would say anytime we go over $11 million, they're going to reduce our real estate tax revenue. They're going to reduce your taxes, which is good as, any taxpayer wants a discount. But they're going to reduce our revenue. So as our revenue goes down, we might eventually need an operating tax levy somewhere in there. We're going to try our best to prevent that. But now they're tying our hands with this new law.
So Dr. Rock, if we have over 30%, we are going to be penalized?
Yeah. It's not like they're going to take our money from us, like we're going to lose the money. But what's going to happen is they're going to charge lower real estate taxes. So instead of collecting, like right now we collect about $23 million of real estate taxes. We might collect, 18 or 17. We don't even know how they're going to do this calculation, and they're putting this in the law. There's more questions than answers already. So yeah, you're right, Mrs. Moomin. It would be a penalty because we would get less revenue than what we had accepted. And the other part that they're going against is the taxpayers, our taxpayers in the community, voted yes on those levies. They wanted that money to go to the school district. And what they're doing is they're negating that just with a stroke of a pen. So it's very scary. And I wouldn't be here presenting it if it didn't seem like it had traction. Any questions? Oh, sorry, Mr. Jolly.
Is this a consequence of November 5th elections?
We don't know. I'll tell you what is a consequence of. The state is trying to balance their budget, and we're always impacted by that. We're always a victim of it. Because like I told you in the past, prior state fundings would be, hey, we have $5 billion, let's put that to fund public education. Like they didn't even know what it cost to do public education. And then they re-engineer they come up with some thing that says, okay, here's how that's going to be divvied up. But now we have this new formula. Where am I getting with this? Sorry, I lost my
I guess, Dr. Rock, you have the head of the Department of Education federally that said we want to blow it up and send all of those funds down to the state. So now the state should have more money. So that's why I guess my question.
Yeah, no, this is all state involved. This is the state saying, oh, and that's so when they add up all of our fund balances for all of the 608 school districts in Ohio, when they add it all up, there's a remaining carryover of about 47%. So you have these senators and House of Representatives, at least the ones that are proponents of this, going in the public saying, hey, that's money that the school districts aren't using. Why are they charging taxpayers more money? Why are they accumulating more money? But they don't know the story. You know, with ours, I showed you mathematically how we built ours up, but we have a story behind that. And the other thing is we want to prevent asking for more levies. You know, you go to our neighbors, you know, just yesterday, there's a lot of levies that failed. More failed than passed. And you never know if they're bond levies, because bond levies usually pass. And, you know, our community, we broke the record. You know, after the vote came in, Columbus called, they're like, hey, you broke the record. I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. We were 78% yes vote. No one's broken that record yet.
Dr. Rock, excuse me, would you mind if I expound a little bit on
Yes.
what you carried on about? I want to share with the community something that I learned during my tenure on board. I was at for my background, I have worked for the financial arm of the federal government for quite a few years. I won't say how many because I don't want to date myself, all right? But I worked for the financial arm of the federal government. We were at a state board conference, and I was in a breakout session that was about school funding. And they showed a graphic that was illustrating operating costs. And the way they judge districts, they would have days of operating costs because, you know, districts are different sizes. So bigger districts cost more money to operate. Smaller districts, of course, cost less money. So the way they would have a level playing field was a concept called days of operating costs. So they would judge your district of how many days, if you receive not one more dollar from what you already have, how many more days could your district continue to operate? I was just sitting in that conference and they put a chart up and there were 607 districts in the state. And Warrensville was on that chart and it was number 5. And I just couldn't believe how proud I was to sit there to find out that these two gentlemen have been such, you know, great stewards of our money that our district was fit in this entire state in the way they manage their operating costs. So Dr. Rock and Mr. Jolly might be being a little bit conservative when they, you know, give this story to you of how we're being penalized for being good stewards of the money and accumulating that carryover balance. They've done a great job of managing the money, and now this legislation would basically penalize this district for being good stewards of those dollars. So I didn't mean to step on your presentation, Dr. Rock, but I just wanted to share that with our district.
Thank you.
Dr. Rock, I have one more question. For the I'm looking at the changes that's coming down from the state. Is there any possibility that we're gonna be losing staff because of it?
Well, I mean, we don't want to lose staff. No.
But if you do
It's
lose
our
staff-
goal to always keep our same program.
Okay, cause I don't like big classes.
That's why I say we're going to always continue to do what we do.
Okay.
If you do lose staff,
Oh,
She asked where we're gonna lose staff, and at this time,
no.
we don't foresee losing staff at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Our intentions are to keep investing in the program.
So I heard a question on
Your
that.
question?
if y'all do lose staff, how do y'all keep the morale up so that our students don't suffer that hard hit? Because when I went to Warrensville, we lost teachers that meant the world to us, and we were protesting doing all that, and they still walk. So how do we keep our students from having to go through that as well?
So that is always a concern of ours, and that's why I mean, the original study, we're gonna try to stay as far away from the classroom as possible. Because again, that's the most important
That's the
area,
most important.
our students and our teachers' relationships. So again, that would be our first, is to try to maintain the classroom. Our class sizes is very important to us, to ensure that we have, our success is based on our student and teacher relationships, and our class sizes big or small. And that's something that we will always try to continue to maintain as much as possible.
And remember now, we have a healthy carryover balance. So it's not like we're going to be going into cuts or anything. But what we are saying, though, is if this law goes into effect, we need to make some changes to protect our carryover balance. And that's why, like I said, we're going to go and we're going to finish the construction projects that we wanted for the district. And we're going to continue to invest in the educational program. And we're going to make every financial move we can make to lower that carryover balance, but still preserve our cash. And there's ways of doing that where there's some legal ways where we could do that, moving funds into some funds, different funds. Okay, so we're going to do all of that first. Okay, so if this does go through and then we are getting less revenue, we're saying, down the line, there may be some adjustments. That's how crazy this is. But it's nothing that's impacting right now. But we want to stay ahead of it just like we always do for the community.
You touched on my question a little bit, but if this passes, are there any limitations to how you spend down? Can you pay for things forward? And is it possible, like whatever we end up paying for each year, there could be a reserve for that?
Yes. But the state is not explaining any of this. But I know that's why I was saying that one of the ones was moving our future severance payments. We could put that into a different fund. So now our carryover balance goes down. This fund goes up, but this fund isn't the one they're looking at. They're looking at our general fund. Same with maintenance. We could add up all of our maintenance. I mean, it costs a lot to maintain new buildings or old buildings. It still costs a lot. You still need buses. You still need equipment to cut the grass. We still need book adoptions. We still need a lot of things. So we could put that on a long-term plan and move that money into PI. So those are two moves that we could do. So after we do that and complete the campus, if we are over and this goes through, the taxpayers will get it. We'll have to follow whatever the taxpayers get a discount on, but we will continue. And here's the biggest thing. 16 years we ran within current resources. We want to continue to do that. And if we do that, that solves everything. In other words, whatever money comes in, if you spend within that, you're okay. Does that help answer your question? Okay.
So I'm gonna tell you why I'm concerned. We haven't paid Beach for anything. So once we go into another mode, I'm concerned that the flow won't be like it is now. Because we have an additional bill that we didn't have for 16 years. We got an additional bill that we're gonna have to deal with. So with that additional bill, even though we manage well, it's a concern. And that's why I want to get it out to the public and everyone to know, because as the concerns come, I want everybody to know it's a concern. And of course, we're going to do everything possible to maintain what we're doing. But we do have this settlement that we got to deal with. And it's significant. It's not peanuts. And with that, there's some serious considerations that we always got to keep in mind. And prayerfully, we'll get through it unscathed. But people should know it's significant, and this is something we haven't had to deal with. So I just want to keep that in front as we move forward. Any questions, please? Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Have community partnerships been considered with this Beachwood initiative, putting them over Beachwood, so that community partners are aware of what's going on and to say how they can support it or help us to get rid of some of this debt?
Yeah, so I think that's something we're going to be investigating. Just working with community partners to supplement some things. Yeah, I know that a lot of them are aware of the dispute, so the dispute is well known. The settlement is not. So as soon as the settlement does get approved, the people will start to come to the table. Next question.
Regarding the carryover, will you please explain again, what's the scenario that will cause homeowners to pay a higher tax? Like, what was that scenario again?
Oh, well, that would be eventually, so if we need to get if we start to run out of money, we're either gonna have to, if we start to run out of money, then you'll see cuts, or we'll have to ask for new money.
Okay, and then, in your opinion, should that pass on to the taxpayers? And considering what the state is doing right now, do you think it would have such an impact that it runs the risk of some residents being unable to pay that tax and lose their homes? I don't know why that came to mind, but listen to what Mr. Roberts said about the position that Warrensville is. I mean, let's be honest, gentrification is happening all over the country. So obviously, prime real estate. So who's looking to take over Warrensville and creating certain scenarios that will cause people to lose their homes? Hopefully, does that make sense?
Yes, that's a great comment, because here, if we played this out, if this law passes and they say we're only allowed to keep 30% carryover, and the taxpayers are going to get a break, so, and we don't know how the state's going to do it, but all right, they say the carryover is too big, your taxpayers, you're not going to pay real estate taxes for 2 years. So you'll have 2 years where there's zero real estate taxes for a school district, okay? The district's going to collect less, and then so many years after that, if we get to a point where we need more money because we don't have that carryover anymore, we're going to come out with a new levy. And this is where you're spot on with your assumption, because a new levy is going to cost a lot more than the old ones. Just for instance, okay, and that's why I was saying that we already have current law that controls when values go up, okay? In 1976, that's when that law came out. If you add up all of our millages, somewhere around 40 mills, okay? On those levies, we're only charging 9 mills because values went up. And again, on every levy that we have, we can only collect the original dollar amount and the original millage. So if values go up, you collect a lower amount, so that it's charged less. Okay, but a new levy would be at 100%. So it would cost a lot more, because now they would be current time levies instead of the old ones that have devalued throughout time. So that's a great comment.
Yes, ma'am.
So back on my program. I'm really big on program, you guys know. So after everything is done, in the settlement, do we still put together some programming, or just
No, not at this time. There won't be any programming. I think there might be a provision for professional development, but no programming at this point.
What's the carryover balance right now?
Right now it's 59 million that we have. There's no limit now. There's no limit. And that's why we've utilized that to build and to be strategic for the district. Because our number one goal is not to have a new operating levy. Because again, those new operating levies are going to cost a lot more than the old ones. We only have one levy that we renew every 5 years. And that one only collects $1.8 million, and it's down to 3.37 mils. When it first came out, it was 9 mils. So you could see how, you know, the old levies, they charge less because the valuation of the district grows. It's very sophisticated, but it actually works. But if they tinker with it, they're really going to make a mess out of things.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. Where does that extra money go? The fact that they're capping when your valuation of your property goes up and your taxes go up. So they're capping how much the school systems should give. Does that go to the county?
No,
Does it go to the county, so it goes to the state?
There's no extra money. It's not charged. It's not charged to the taxpayer.
But it's charged now, isn't it? Well,
No.
the valuation of our homes went from, like you said, 60 to 90. Our taxes went up in the last couple of years or whatever. So where is that extra going?
There's not on the school district. I did the calculation for our school levies, and from $60,000 to $90,000, you actually save $22.
Right. But the extra money that you're paying as a taxpayer on your property taxes, let's say if your taxes went from 500 to 700, and the school is getting $22 less or whatever.
Yeah, we're getting $22 less.
Right, there's still more money being paid.
Exactly.
Is that going to the county?
Yeah, it could go to the county, to your library, to your parks. It all depends on where you live. Yeah, so on your real estate tax bill in Warrensville, 67% goes to the school district. So you have 33% of other jurisdictions. You know, you have your city, fire, police, whatever other levies you have. I'm sorry, I don't have those. I'm biased. I just want to know our levy. So, and it depends on where you live, you know, because there might be there might be special levies for different things. But and you know, yours, the county is a big chunk though. There's some, you know, and then there's county programs, county MRDD, county libraries. That, you know, it just, you know. So again, remember that we're only 67% of your tax bill.
Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Well, we will reconvene another meeting this month. As soon as the settlement is approved, then we will send out public notice for the follow-up meeting. As these laws will progress, we will follow up also with the information that said how it will affect us. Again, and I say the concern here is that we have a two-pronged attack. We got the state coming and saying you got to spend all of this money. If you don't spend it, then you know, we're gonna reduce taxes. The cost of doing business goes up every year. Every year goes up. The cost of utilities, salaries go up. So if you reduce your income, that fund balance is gonna go down anyway. So that's gone. And then we got another settlement situation that we got to deal with. So we just want to put it out there that we're very concerned about both, and we're going to continue to come to you and tell you as it goes down. We'll let you know. We'll do everything we can to make sure that we maintain and continue to be the best district that we are. But this is the first brush at it, and we'll be back, and we'll keep you updated. So thank everyone for coming. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the board, I would like to thank everyone for coming out. When these issues arise and we have information, we want to be as transparent as possible and share it with the community so we can get out in front of it and you can anticipate any changes that might be afoot. So once again, thank you very much for coming out this evening.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, can we take a 5-minute recess? Okay, thank you.
We'll take a 5-minute recess and then we'll come back together into the executive session. Good job, sir.
It's going to be 1 million and 1.1 million.
Good job, sir.
Oh, thank you. It's good to see you.
Did I wait? Yeah, was oh, okay.